Hey folks, welcome to your weekly update. It's May 20th, it's raining, it's about 2 p.m. and right now I am in the process of putting down the radiant floor in this passive solar greenhouse. Well, this is certainly not a passive solar greenhouse. We've seen this in the last number of videos. So right now I'm standing on about 12 inches underneath me is the climate battery. So I've got this big O pipe that goes and distributes all around the ground. You've seen some videos from it on YouTube, perhaps, if you've been watching my channel the last couple days. So that's done, compacted, and now I'm doing another layer. I'll be adding about 4 to 6 inches on top of this. And this is the radiant floor. So this is 1/2 inch PEX that's going down, and this is going to distribute hot water with glycol in it from a wood boiler, and it will warm the garden soil that's going to be in this as well. And it'll also warm the floor, it'll warm the space. This greenhouse will have 3 inches of insulation, rigid insulation on the outside, all around the footing and on the retaining wall in the back. It'll all be covered. It'll be treated just like it would the foundation of a house, essentially. And so because that concrete is on the inside, it's also going to act as a thermal mass. When I ran the first line on this circuit, I came out relatively close to this wall. I want this wall to get warm because in this greenhouse, I'm going to have a garden bed 30 inches right off this wall. So it's going to butt up right to the wall. Come out to here, there'll be about an 18-inch or 20-inch walkway, and then there'll be a center bed, and then the same space between the next bed off this wall, which will butt up right to this. So the hope with this greenhouse is that I will be able to, I could run it in two ways. I could run it where I want to keep it warm all the time and really push, peppers or warm weather crops into the season, or I'll keep it cool in that I'll just keep it from freezing. And so the delta T on this, which will be over here when the main line comes in for this, I'll just adjust that and maybe keep it at 1 degree Celsius so that it pumps just enough water to keep the soil temperature or the return line at 1 degree Celsius. So the garden beds will have 2 feet of soil on top of them, which is a lot of soil. And should be able to grow all year in this greenhouse. So this has taken me a little bit longer than I thought. I've actually been by myself all week. I haven't had any crew working with me. One of my guys had an incident in his personal life and is out of the picture for a little while. And another guy is off for a week, and another guy is no longer with us. So I'm basically, while we transition to there's some new people coming in, and I'll be subbing out some more things coming up too. So I'll be keeping going on the garden as I have been in the homestead and the greenhouses and all that. And there'll be a little bit of a change up with the construction. What I've decided to do, besides me moving forward with the gardens and doing all this stuff regarding my buildings here, is before I finish my house, I'm going to completely finish my garage and greenhouse here. So that's all the outside, the siding. We're doing a 1.5 inch outsolation. It's called a polyiso, and then we'll have hardy plank and galvanized steel on parts of the building, and then we do the window trims and all that stuff. So we'll be getting this building completely finished and be taking some time off the construction. Maybe could be the rest of the year, or it could pick up later in the summer. What I want to do basically is, I've learned a lot about being a project manager in the last year, and I feel confident that I can manage it without a general contractor. I'm going to have a concrete crew come in and finish the rest of the foundation. Well, the foundation's perfect and finished, but they're going to come in and finish the walls, the first floor of the basement. That's all ICF blocks. And then I'm going to have a carpentry crew or a framing crew come in and do the framing of everything. And then I'll use different trades once we're past lockup to do stuff on the inside. And some of the guys that work for me have a good skill set to do those kinds of things too. So that's kind of what's going on in the overall project, and I'm hoping. So today's Friday. I'm gonna be getting this done today. I don't know if I have enough sand to finish packing this, so I might wait for another load. I might be able to get another load this weekend, and if I can get another load, that'll be enough to finish this, pack it, and then I'll be ready to put my garden boxes in here, and then I'll be using my Mini X and bringing in bucket loads of soil that I'll be mining from my soil pit mine back there, and that'll be quite time consuming. But if everything goes okay for me next week, I should be able to have these garden beds set, ready to go with soil, and then hopefully get the crops in there, and then get the poly over this thing. Once I put the greenhouse on here, this will go quite simple, because the way my bows, come and check this out. The way my bows go in these is really clean and simple. I just have to do a couple cuts on them to get them to this size, but they'll just go up here. These are firm as can be. And we'll be putting a piece of strapping, like a toe kick board along here, and then a hip board here, and then same on the back wall as well. And what I plan on doing actually with this greenhouse is, when I do the roll up side back here, what's gonna happen is, because the ground level's here, this roll up side, because I'll be able to stand quite high, I'll make this roll up side probably go to something like this. So in the summertime, I can just completely vent it. And so this is, quite a ways over the crop, the beds here. So a lot of heat will come out of here. And this front one will come up fairly high too. So we'll be able to keep this greenhouse very well vented. And which is good if you want to push things into the winter. When you're doing winter farming, when you want to establish your crop going into winter, you don't want to establish a crop in a greenhouse that's too hot, because then the crop won't establish very well. You'll get poor germination. You'll get just pressure issues on your plants, and they'll die if it's too hot. So, this is where guys like Elliot Coleman invented some of these ideas to use movable greenhouses. And the idea there was, they're great for a winter crop, because you can establish your fall crop, which you would do in the late summer, the height of the summer. You establish it then on ground that doesn't have a greenhouse on, and then by early October, late September, you move a greenhouse onto it, and then you've got this really robust crop that now you've just made life a little bit more comfortable for to go into winter. So that's a similar idea with something like this. If I can vent this really well and establish a really strong fall crop, that will be much more beneficial going into winter to get the longevity out of that crop. So that's really all there is to show on here. The other thing we could go check right now are the gardens, and because I'm going to be planting that, I hope to be planting that out next week, but I've been monitoring the soil temperature. And a couple days ago, when we had a sunny break during the day, it's been still cool all week, little sunny breaks here and there. But I checked the soil temperature a couple days ago, and during the day when it was sunny, the soil temperature was 19 degrees Celsius, which is plenty warm. So before we head to the gardens, I just wanted to show you guys my chicken area. I'm a novice with this, and this is a collaborative effort with my wife and my daughter. And my daughter actually does a lot of the chores, which is great. She touches the birds a lot, so they're used to us. They're comfortable around us. They follow us. The flock has been going well. I think, I don't know if I showed this last week, but we have a new batch of birds that we've brought in to this coop. What I did is I noticed when I had these birds, so we have two successions of birds down here. They're starting to look the same. They're catching up to each other's growth, I guess. I was noticing that they were always just going down there. And I had a new flock, so our third flock, which is another 20 birds, they're Colombian rock. I was noticing that these guys were just staying down there, and so I thought, well, why don't I just cordon off this coop, and then when I bring the new chicks in, I can season them to the area by just putting them in here and separating the two. So these guys can't come up into this, but I've got my little birds, these little guys in here. And so these are a purebred these ones. These guys are a couple different species. And so we have 50 birds now. Our plan, at least so far, and again, we're novices. These are dual purpose birds. They're egg layers and meat birds. So our plan is to basically slaughter most of the flock in the fall and then keep some amount of birds and roosters and chickens, so roosters and hens, so that they can procreate, and then we can just incubate a new batch of eggs and basically keep cycling them that way, essentially. So yeah, they seem to be doing well, and I've got a little bit more electric fencing now, and what I've been doing is I have yet to build a mobile coop. That's my plan. It's just time and, you know, limited capacity at the moment. But I have 2 electric fences, so I've been grazing. I've been doing a little bit of rotational grazing. I'm kind of figuring it out, you know. But so our main chicken area is sort of establishing is here, and I'm going to put some permanent fencing in this area. And then I'm just going to be moving my birds around with electric fences. So I cordoned them into this area over here earlier this week, and now I'm pushing them down into this area. I just opened up this area this morning, and I moved their food and water down here to incentivize them to come here. And so they're coming across here, and then they're chewing and scratching at the ground here. So my plan is to just keep moving them around. The way my property is set up is there's this inner 8 acres that we're standing in, basically all the open area. And then when you start to see tree lines, that's essentially where my primary main fence is. And it's not a boundary fence because my property is 40 acres, but it's basically, we've cordoned off the whole 8 acres, all the open area, and that's where we're going to do all of our agricultural stuff. So the neat thing is once I have a mobile coop, which will allow my birds to sleep in that particular area away from that once we get into the warmer season, then I'll be moving them around, and I'll be using our main fence there as a boundary. And they won't be able to go past that either, because the bottom 3 or 4 feet of the fencing is tight like this, and so they can't get through it. So my plan is to just rotational graze these birds all around my property as much as I can. And this is a brittle landscape, and it's really good that we're getting as much rain as we have this year, because it's really greening up this ground. This ground by this time last year was starting to get dry, and so it's gonna stay green. I'm gonna be irrigating it soon as well. I have all my main lines in, so at any point I can start watering, but I mean, we've had lots of rain lately, so there's been no urgency for that. But once we start to rotational graze these birds, they'll be in a relatively small area for a short duration of time, and then they won't come back to that area for a longer time. So that's your typical mob grazing strategy: high density, short duration, long recovery. And so that's my plan with these birds. And too, with my brittle landscape, I don't want to chew it down too much, because then it just turns to dust. So what I hope to do is, after the chickens are in an area for a while, they'll leave it, and then I'll run sprinklers, and I'll really water that area. It's just been fertilized. If the chickens don't chew things down too much, they actually will excite the growth of all the grass, and it'll grow back stronger, especially after being fertilized. And so I'm hoping that in time, this will just allow me to green this place up perpetually. So if I have some help next week, I'd like to get all of these plants in the ground. These are all of my currants, mostly raspberries, some goji berries, some thornless blackberries, some sea buckthorn berries. I'd like to get these things in the ground. They've been climatized now, and they've survived nights out here for the last week and a half, so they're ready to go into the ground. I still have a lot of stuff in the greenhouse that I haven't wanted to put out yet. I've got my peaches in there, some of my other apples, some of my housecap berries. I haven't put them out yet, but we've got a lot of stuff to plant, but it's kind of, there's a lot of things going on at once. So especially this week, working myself, I've only been able to get so much done, but this is something that definitely needs to happen soon. Oh, one thing I did this week is I these are some concrete forms that came off this, and they're actually making pretty good makeshift hardening off tables. So on warm days, I've been bringing out all my tomatoes and just hand bombing them 2 at a time and laying them all out here and then bringing them in at night. A bit of a pain in the butt, but it kind of has to be done if I want to slow them from growing. If I leave them in the greenhouse the whole time, they'll just grow too fast and get too lanky. And then when I go to plant them in that soil there, they're harder to plant, they break easy, they're just a little bit more finicky. So I've been bringing them in and out during the week to harden them off. And what I will do at some point when I've got a bunch of crops in the ground and I've got some breathing room, I'll be building a hardening off tunnel on this spot. Basically, this area of ground is just kind of nebulous because it got affected when we were doing construction. When we were building this, we were bringing materials in here and it's a big mess. But I'll be terracing this area out a bit more and putting a 25-foot tunnel that's 10 feet wide or about 8 feet wide. And it's just going to have a bench in it. Probably what I'll do is it has one roll up side. It's just a small one. You roll it up all the way to here, and then you have just a bench like this, and you just come from the outside and you put all your flats in there, and then you leave it out for the day open, and at nighttime you close it up. So it's a hardening off area. So instead of schlepping flats back and forth like I have been, I'll have a place that they can just stay once they go to the hardening off tunnel. They spend 2-3 weeks in there, and then they'll, not 2-3 weeks, really 1 to 2 weeks is good enough, but they'll spend that time in here and then they'll go out into the field. So coming down to the garden plot here, I put some clear plastic on this last week. Was this on when we were here? No, okay. So I put this on early this week. After last week, these beds were all prepped. Right after that, basically, I put this plastic on, and this poly will be used for some low tunnels that are going to go here next. So I'll be able to split this poly in half, and then each of them will cover 2 beds with poly low tunnels. If you've seen any of my older urban farming videos, I used to use those all the time. So I've been warming this soil with it's called Solarization, and it's where you use a clear plastic instead of a black plastic. Now, the reason I'm using a clear plastic is there's a number of reasons here. One is, like I just mentioned, it's a dual purpose. I had the plastic, and I can use it for one purpose, keep it in the same place, cut it, and then I barely have to move it, and then it doubles up as a mini greenhouse poly. But also, solarizing will germinate your weeds faster. So this is, I'm stale seed bedding here, and this is sort of a low-till market gardening technique where I want to encourage weed growth. So we had a whole week of rain on it last week, and then I covered it up, and we've had sunny breaks and things like that, and when it's sunny, it's quite warm under there. Like I said the other day, I measured it when it was sunny. It was 19 degrees Celsius. I'm going to measure it now and see. But the idea here is that I'm warming the soil really quickly, which clear plastic does well because it creates a greenhouse effect in there. And with all that water that's in that soil, it just creates a massive amount of condensation, and heat feels hotter when it's humid. You notice this if you live in a humid city in the summer versus a dry place in the summer. Heat feels hotter quicker, and so plants like it. They germinate quicker. So my hope here is that I'll be germinating all the weed seeds in here, and then once they germinate, I'll pull these off, I'll flame weed this. They'll just get touched with a little bit of flame that'll just burn them, and then I'll be planting my crops. In these 14, 18-foot beds here, I'll be doing mostly potatoes, onions, and carrots. So first batch of storage crops for the apocalypse. So we're gonna just pop this open. I've got a little soil thermometer here, just kind of like a meat thermometer. Stick it in. Wait a little bit here. It's climbing. It's getting 15 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's great. That's fantastic. That means, so what will happen is, because it's still cold, like this has been the coldest spring I've ever witnessed in my life. And everybody in the area is saying the same thing. And a lot of the farmers around here are affected by it. A lot of the orchardists, really bad crop this year. This could be a very serious food situation we're getting into. And the need to plant crops and get big harvests in is more important than ever right now for homesteaders or people that are awake and prepared. So I got my soil warmed here. What I'm going to do next is, like I said, flame weed it. I'll plant those crops. They'll get covered in poly again. They'll be going into warm soil and warm air. So those crops should continue to grow very well. But this technique is, I haven't done solarization in years. I've always just done black plastic. But this, according to my measuring right now, has been making the soil a lot warmer quicker than black plastic has for me in the past. So a lot of things to do next week. Hopefully I can get it all done. If I have help, I can more likely get it done. But planting these crops, finishing that greenhouse with at least with the garden beds, and getting some perennials in the ground. So that's what my week looks like next week. So anyways, folks, we'll leave it there for this vlog. If you want to see all of my daily vlogs, head over to fromthefield.tv. We have a 7-day free sign up there. You check it out, sign up for 7 days, no obligation, and cancel anytime. And yeah, if you like this video, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.